Everybody, welcome to this design thinking crash course conversation. This is Michael Cohen, the Tech Rabbi. And today we are going to talk about something that I think is pretty powerful. What we're going to talk about is the difference between design thinking for every other industry and what it looks like in K-12 education. Even what design thinking looks like in higher ed is very different. Few years ago, I led a workshop at University of Oklahoma, and it was incredible. It was incredible to see how design thinking could make an impact in a huge university. This university, University of Oklahoma, for those who don't know, for those that do, massive, huge university. You should Google it. It's a very, very large university. And I'm sitting in a room with professors of geology, of ROTC, of business, of music, from the School of Education. There was a professor of biology. And not only had I think none of them had ever met each other before, but they realized the way in which the university had compartmentalized each different section of learning in the university. And it was at that moment that I realized that I had to fundamentally shift what I see design thinking look like in a K-12 space versus in business, in industry. And so I wanted to run through today's conversation, this live webinar, and really just kind of break down the course in the way that I've designed, I think, a unique approach to you as an educator mastering the design thinking process in your classroom, and really the way in which you can give your students, the young people in your classrooms, the empowered feeling of knowing that they can problem solve through empathy, but that they can actually create and do something about the problems that they see in the world. So without further ado, let's start to break this down. And one of the things that I think is the most important about this kind of process is that you have to be aware of the misunderstandings around empathy. So I'm going to throw up my screen here. We're going to get into this, and hopefully we're going to have some fun. I'm going to share my screen right now. And perfect. So we have this design thinking crash course. I partnered with Participate, and I'm just really excited to launch it. And when I think about some of the things that hopefully will get you to understand and be interested in this course is, what are we going to talk about today? But really, what is the course all about? And as I said before, it's the what does, could, should design thinking look like in a K-12 classroom. As you can tell from my coffee mug, I'm a big fan of design thinking. I think it's important to understand how we can apply the stages of design thinking independently. This is where I find just about every really cool strategy and methodology that's either rebranded or just exists in education struggling, is that there's these really big frameworks and it's kind of an all or nothing. And I know with project-based learning, I run workshops all the time around project-based learning. And I always get this question of, well, if I'm missing one of the, the standards of project-based learning of this framework, is it still project-based learning? So how can we apply independently each stage? How can we use design thinking for small moments and big projects? And then what impact can design thinking create? So the first rule of design thinking is don't use bullet points. And I think it's sort of a presentation approach to design thinking, which is if I want to empathize with my audience, that means that I want to understand what they need. They need to be engaged by the information that I'm sharing. And if I can break down the design thinking process in this way versus in bullet points, I have a higher chance of really helping them succeed in understanding something that's new for them. And in this case, it's the design thinking framework itself. The way that the design thinking framework works is that it begins with empathy. It begins with understanding the struggles and realities of someone else because it's a problem solving process for other people. You could use design thinking in your own life, but it's definitely not designed for that. I mean, it's just, for lack of a better word, it's all about problem solving for other people. So you begin with empathy, and that doesn't mean beginning with, well, what's wrong with the person? Well, where are their struggles? Any design thinking workshop that I lead, I start with, okay, we are going to empathize with our group. I don't define what empathy means. I begin, okay, we have figured out who it is that we want to support. Now let's empathize. Okay, so they're not focused. They are not able to be organized, right? And they start just like rattling off a list of things that the students can and can't do. Like, that's not empathy. That is just pointing out what's wrong. So once we empathize and we understand who it is, who is our group, who's our community that we're trying to support, whether it's a classroom community, whether it's a community in our school, beyond our school, then we have to define the problem. So we know who the people are. So we have to define the problem, because the problem isn't as simple as just, well, here's the problem. We have to define it, which means that we need to be able to break it down and articulate it and really condense and find its essence and its core of what the problem is. Then we start to ideate, we start to prototype, and then we test, but it can't end there. And I'm a big fan of Seth Godin. You should read his book, Linchpin. I'm all about shipping it. I'm all about getting it out in the world, because at the end of the day, design thinking is about helping people. It's not about running through a sort of, experience in a philosophical or a theoretical way. It is absolutely about supporting and helping other people. So in my course, I break down each one of the processes of the design thinking model. And I'm going to right now access my course. I want to share that with you and just run through it so you see what it is that you can engage with, what you can get. So when you look through the design thinking crash course on participate.com. So you join the course, which I hope you all will. I have at the end of watching this a link that I'll share, and you'll be able to sign up and get a 20% off coupon, because I've come to the realization in my own professional work that when things are exciting, but I don't have a monetary investment in them, it's really hard to fulfill and follow through. And I don't know if that is the same for everybody, but I know for me, if I'm going to be serious about something, it has to be something that I am 100% ready to engage with, 100% ready to put a monetary commitment towards, and then I'm going to fulfill it. But it's not just about fulfilling the course. It's not just about running through a bunch of check marks. I've created also an experience that I'm modeling for how you might be able to engage your students in learning, which is, it's not flipped classroom. It's just a way of bringing in different types of media and different types of conversation so that there's opportunities to be engaged in multiple different mediums. So I begin with a video, and it's a video intro. The video intro is just, sort of a welcome. It's a breakdown. I have my quick tips, and then I have a Facebook group. And that is one of the things that I'm the most excited about, because that's not just about you connecting with me, although I am excited for that. It's about you connecting with other educators that are genuinely interested in developing a stronger understanding and ability to implement design thinking in the classroom. That's an opportunity for, I think, professional development to completely transform, because it allows for us to engage with others who are interested just like we are. How many times are you in a professional development situation where everyone has to be there, everybody has to do the same thing, and it's not the interests of everybody? So there's this welcome. And then, as you see here, I have each module, each one is broken down into a creative mindset development, and then each module is two different components of the design thinking process. That's module 4, module 5. Module 2 is all about creative mindset. Module 1 is all about creative mindset. Module 2 is all about employing empathy and really understanding how critical empathy is, not just for being a good design thinker, but just for being a good human being. Module 3 is about define and ideation. Module 4 is prototyping and testing. And then module 5 is ship it and getting it out into the world. So I have videos, I have resource kits with just incredible links to different books, different articles that really have impacted and allowed me to develop a vernacular and a new way of searching and researching around this type of information. So there's action items, there's assignments. This 30 circle challenge was an incredible way that I helped launch not just my own back to school experience with my students here, but hashtag, right? Really, really, exciting student-led work. This is high school. They struggle with this. They struggled with this. Had students, I had educators, across the world on Twitter, hashtag educated by design, sharing me their 30 circle challenge. I didn't realize that my cup wasn't there before. I'm a big fan of design thinking, as you can tell. So they did the 30 circle challenge, and that develops that divergent thinking process. It develops their ability to really start picking apart, how do I solve problems? How do I figure out when things are really unknown, really abstract? High school students do not do well with that. But I think the lower grades, if we get them then, they don't have this built up experience. It's actually a wall and an obstacle to succeeding, right? So back into the course. So then you have, the module here. I have another resource kit. I have an empathy map and an empathy weekly reflection that I've created. It really just helps build community. And then it gets everyone to understand, what does it feel like to be empathetic, and what does it feel like to have somebody be empathetic towards you? And then you can start to engage with empathy in the classroom. So, you see here, and there's me super excited as I'm getting really into the course. Then at the end of the course, this is what I hope is something that you feel is super valuable, which is, it's not enough to just have a course and you go through, and yes, there's a private Facebook group and there's people engaging in there, and you're building community around this passion of design thinking on a global level. I created a ebook that is a fully scoped, design-driven experience called Kindness is Currency. And if you click on the book, you'll actually run through it and you'll see that it's all about creating an opportunity for your students to answer what I think is a really important driving question. How can our values empower us to scale ideas into actions that help our communities? Now, this is a complicated driving question. Driving questions are supposed to be complicated. They're supposed to get the students to ask more questions. And if they are intimidated to ask a question, then you can break apart this question. Can anyone tell me, class, what is a value? What does it mean to scale an idea? Okay, I get excited sometimes with the startup lingo. You can readjust and rewrite that driving question if needed. And then what does it mean to scale ideas into actions? And what does it mean to help community? What does it mean? What does a community mean? What is a community? So I go through and I keep going and I break down just this whole process of problem solving and developing the sort of the prerequisites to be ready to dig into the design thinking process. And then at the end, it's fully scoped and it's broken down into the stages. How much time can you dedicate? Is this a week-long project? Does this need to be even smaller in scale? I've basically designed it in a way that it should allow for you to spend about a week and a half on it, and also some time outside of school, because I hope the students are going to be really excited about it. We have an action plan template, and then I created a hyperlinked innovation rubric that is taking different components of the design thinking process and connecting those into Common Core standards if you are bound to the Common Core standards. If you're not, those standards that I've chosen are still really incredible. It's a mastery scale, so it's mastery, demonstratable, and emerging skills. And then I have a bunch of different resources for each one of these sections. And you get that with this course. And you get access to me, and you get access to a community. I think that all of those are just really powerful when we think about how are we really transforming the way in which we do professional development. Now, it's not just the question, so to speak, of, okay, well, we have design thinking here, and everyone agrees that it's really important, but now what, right? Like, now what are we going to do with that? And I think that that's where it is a fundamentally different way of using the design thinking process in a K-12 space than it is in other spaces. I didn't invent design thinking. Design thinking existed many years before I got into education, even many years before I got into design. I think it predates me as existing in this world. It's created up in Stanford with collaboration with the design school, the Kelly brothers, IDEO, like that. That's all there. But they're really focused on big business, and they don't have so many opportunities. And if they do, and if anyone's watching this, please share me the resources, because I love to be wrong if it means that I can learn and grow and be better. But they don't have as many opportunities to really get into specific schools, mostly because they're running a global consulting brand, and it's probably really expensive to bring them. So they're not there. And because of that, I just feel like they lack a lens of what realities K-12 educators are really going through. And that's why I love the way that I've done it, is really just to break apart and to create lessons around the different parts of the design thinking process. Now, let's say you run through the course, and I hope you do. And let's say you engage with the design thinking process, and I hope you will. You could do that without the course. You can reach out to me, and I will literally send you resources if the course just isn't for you because you don't have time to put in the work at this moment. But I hope you will. I hope that you realize that it's asynchronous, it's self-paced, there's no rush, but what you get is you get an opportunity to not just engage with, I think, a pretty solid structured course that has plenty of activities to implement this beyond just the theoretics, but you have an opportunity to engage with me. And I think that's important for me to know, that people are serious about this, as serious and as excited as I am about it, and that we have an opportunity to collaborate together. And I've already had some really great conversations so far about people that are either already enrolled in the course or are strongly considering enrolling in the course. It's just a hard time because it's back to school. That first month is just really focused on engaging with your students and getting to connect with your students and really building those relationships. That's why design thinking is so great. So if you take this course, then next year it's going to be a totally different experience. And it's because you start to create experiences for your students that are they're just totally different than the way in which we traditionally engage with our students. I mean, I can't. I'll give you an example. So I was at a event. It was an Apple education event, and we did this really cool icebreaker, get to know you bingo. And for those that are familiar with Keynote, you can create an image placeholder. And on the iPad, it's really cool, or the iPhone, you open up the file and you can actually click on the placeholder image. And then, actually, I think I could just show you. How cool would that be? Instead of just talking about it. Awesome. All right. I'm super visual, so I'm like talking to you about something, and I'm wishing that I had it. So you have this Keynote bingo, and each one of these is a placeholder. You can see here, right? This little button right here, it's a placeholder. So on the iPhone or the iPad, you actually have the option to use your camera and take a picture. So you have the student's name, or in this case, it was the person's name, fill in the blank, put the person's name, and then a question. So they created questions in advance. What I like about this activity is first day of school, you would think, oh, I got to do the icebreaker today because we got to be really excited. No, the icebreaker is 2 parts. The first part is each one of you has done something or has a skill that you're proud of or that you think is unique. And you want to really frame it out, because sometimes the students don't think that what they did was really cool. But just you've done something that you think you're the only person in the room that's ever done that. And you're going to put that on, like fill out on a Google form or however you're going to get that information, write it out by hand. And then you're going to create the bingo for the next day. So a student says like, I went to this foreign country, or, I have this skill, or I play this musician, or, I broke my arm, or whatever it is. They come up with the questions like they're excited, they're proud of. And then you also guarantee that like the question is fillable because, the student, is in the class, right? So you put that question there in the template, and then you share the template out with the students, and then they engage in connecting with one another. And what happened at the Apple event was we ended up actually taking these like cool selfies with the person. And it ended up being a really great way of building community and connecting with others, getting others to kind of feel excited that like, oh, someone knows about this cool thing that I'm into, or like everyone was trying to find the person who, saw Mount Everest, whatever, something crazy like that. You never know the experience of your students, and don't underestimate them, even if you teach, first or second grade, right? So these types of experiences are, really focused on ways of using the design thinking model, but you don't have to go all the way. And that's what I like about the design thinking model. I'm not a purist through and through. I'm a purist sometimes in certain circumstances, like with Comic Sans. But for the most part, I'm not really trying to implement a process or a framework that I think has incredible value, that like the whole thing has to be done every single moment. Yes, design thinking to really solve a communal problem. Like if there's a problem that students have identified in their school and they're actually going to try to solve it, they should try to use the entire design thinking scope. Because if they skip empathy, or if they don't properly define the problem, or if their ideation is like 2 or 3 ideas instead of like 30 ideas, then it will struggle and it won't perform well. And then they won't actually solve the problem. And sometimes that can be great. Sometimes that's a great reflection opportunity, but it's not always great, especially if it could have easily been, the outcomes could have been shifted in more of a positive and more of a successful outcome because you just use the framework. But once again, it's those small moments like, okay, I want to employ empathy here, or I love the ideation process. I think that these divergent thinking exercises are so incredible when we look at how are we going to be able to support learners and engage with them and really just come up with new opportunities for them to engage with the world around them and implement and utilize these academic skills and this academic knowledge that we just are saying is so very important for our students. So I think that, at the end of the day, what's the most important thing that I can sort of bestow upon you when we sort of look at, okay, I have a course and the course is $99. I've never sold any of my content ever. It's a foreign feeling for me, but I know that it doesn't matter for me how excited I am. I signed up for an advanced design thinking course around prototyping, like really high-end prototyping. And I got through one day of the MOOC and I was like, okay, life goes on. It's free. And when things are free, you take it as it is. But I think it's important because I think it's investing in yourself, and it's giving you an opportunity to get a course, get the ebook, and get the ability to connect with me and really build conversation around what does design thinking look like in our schools? What does community look like in our schools? What does it look like to connect with an educator and then all of a sudden we're collaborating and we're design thinking on a multi-state or national level? I find opportunities like that to be so rich, which is why one of the big focuses of the course is just that community building. And I think the big takeaway that I got as I designed the course, right, is that you have to be able to understand the audience that you are trying to interface and engage with. In the case of you, the educator, it's your students. You have to understand your students, and I know that you do. I mean, it's almost like it's like we're preaching to the choir, right? But there's a way of doing it, and then there's a way of doing it through this leading with empathy, through this design thinking process. And I just think that when I look at my experiences transitioning from being a designer and understanding the process of empathy as a graphic, as a classical designer, as a design thinker, as someone who was also engaging at certain points in computational design, is that you have to have that empathy piece, and you have to view your students as the main stakeholder in what's happening in the classroom. I once had a client that was really challenging. Ain't gonna lie. Really challenging, really difficult, really irrational. And, basically, I think every single step of the way was trying to get me to do it in a way that just was basically wrong. Right? That's the only way to put it. And then I realized something, which was, this design is for them. I'm going to design it. I'm going to get paid, and I'm going to be gone. And they might come back to me again, but like, they have to live with this design, right? This is their design. This isn't my design. I might be designing it for them, but that's the key word there. I'm designing it for them. It's their design. They're the ones that's going to have to live with it. And when I thought about that, I was like, wow, this is crazy. That must be a really intense experience to sort of have an idea of what you want and not be able to articulate it, and then trust in somebody else to help you figure that out. It's even worse when you don't think you need it. Like, oh, I don't need a logo. I don't need a strong logo. Yeah, you're a business. You need a logo because it's your identity. And what's the identity of a student? It's their ability to learn, right? That's their identity, is they're a learner. So for me, it was just a shift of, being a designer, becoming an educator, and what it looked like to really focus on building out an experience where I put the client, or in the case of an educator, the student first. And at the end of the day, that is probably the hardest thing for an educator, because you don't have one client, you have 30 clients or 20 clients, and they're all sitting in the room at the same time, and they all want something different. Some of them want to learn, some of them don't want to learn. Some of them don't want to learn because they had a horrible experience where somebody told them they didn't know how to learn. Some of them want to learn, but they don't know how to learn. Some of them want to learn, but they don't know how to communicate that they're just scared of looking like they don't know. Isn't that what happens with us educators? We don't engage in new things, new ideas, new processes like design thinking because we're nervous that our students are going to see us as someone who doesn't know something. And it's a work in progress. It really is. But I'm excited to get this course out there into the world. I'm excited to support you as educators, as designers. I truly believe that everyone is a designer. We design new things every day. I said in my ISTE keynote, this course will give you and your students a new vernacular and a new set of resources and a new way of really creating impact in your classroom, where English and math and science and history and language all have a role, but have a role in a very different way, a very new and very real world-esque way. And I'm just excited. I'm really excited to have you be part of it. You can join my design thinking community on Participate. I'm going to have the link in the description here below this live webinar. You can join my course, of course. I want you to join that course, 20% off the course right now, because I just want to get people in it. I want to get people experiencing it. I want to get people to give me feedback. Like, you said this was helping me with empathy, but it really didn't. I need more. And push back and get me to refine the course. The course will constantly be updated and redeveloped. So it's not as static. This is the course, and then you need Design Thinking 2.0. Design Thinking 201 is going to be something much more advanced and a much higher level, where you will be working on building out 2-week-long experiences that will give you a significant amount of connection with me. It's intentionally going to be a smaller group. We're going to have cohorts. It won't be open to join the 201 level course in like sort of a rolling enrollment. It's going to be cohort focused on entrepreneurship as well. And right now I'm just excited for the crash course. I'm excited for 101. I'm excited to get people engaged with design thinking. So with that said, let's connect with me on social. The links are down here below. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I'm putting out content. I'm creating tech tutorials about and conversations about bringing creativity into your classroom. Thank you so much for watching this live webinar, and thank you so much for joining the community and joining the course. Have an awesome day.